Hello, everybody. I'm Chris Bottger, and welcome back to another episode of Chris Bottger's Album Club. Now, for those of you who haven't seen the previous episodes of Album Club, every week we have two albums from a list in which we submitted anonymously to. They're picked out randomly, and we listen to the two of them and give our thoughts on them. We say which one we like better, and then at the end we reveal who picked them and put them on the list. So it's kind of like a Secret Santa thing in a way. So yeah, here at the beginning of the episode, I will be announcing the two albums that we're going to be listening to, and we'll kind of get everyone's initial impressions on the albums. And then after a while, we will then listen to the albums, and then in the later part of the video, we will be back and we will actually discuss our thoughts on the albums. And I will have timestamps for all of that below. So today with me I have Ben,
Hello.
Matthew,
Beth, I hear you calling, but I can't come home right now.
and Santiago.
Hello.
Alright, let's hop right into it. Okay, so today, the albums we're going to be listening to are Cat in the Hat by Bobby Caldwell and The Runaways by The Runaways. Alright, Ben, we're gonna start with you. What are your thoughts on these albums? Just your initial impressions.
I have none. Like, genuinely no impressions. The Cat in the Hat. Like, what was Bobby Caldwell?
Who is Bobby Caldwell? I don't
Yeah,
know.
you pay your respect for Bobby Caldwell. He passed away this year.
Oh.
Okay, well,
Well, it'll be next year by the time this video airs, so.
is it like a soundtrack? I don't know.
Wait, Ben, you think it's a soundtrack to the Michael Myers Cat in the Hat movie?
No, probably not that. Hopefully, but maybe like that old animated one. Maybe I don't know. I honestly have no clue. It's just speculating. In terms of the Runaways, that's a band that I've heard some songs from. I think. That's the one with like Joan Jett was in, right?
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
Subsidies.
Yeah, one of
Like-
the songs is in Guardians of the Galaxy, as well. So I know you must have heard one song by them because I know you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, that album might be good since it's a punk album. I'm not sure. But otherwise, I have no clue. I have like no basis to judge these things. Number one, without listening to them, but also just number two, like, Cat in the Hat sounds like it has to do with Dr. Seuss. And then The Runaways, I don't know. It's kind of hard to judge. Does it sound like Momo Drum did? Does it sound like a punk, or more like some of these punk sound? I don't know. We'll find out, I guess.
Ben, all I have to say is don't diss Dr. Seuss. He already gave us one great song in the Grinch song, so this might be more great stuff in the same vein as the Grinch song. I don't know. Matthew, what are your thoughts on these albums?
I am well acquainted with the album Cat in the Hat by Bobby Caldwell. It is a family classic album in my household, so I can't wait to listen to that again. As for the Runaways, I believe that has one of my favorite music people and fellow Baltimore Orioles fan, Joan Jett. And I've heard, of course, Cherry Bomb that was featured in the first Guardians of the Galaxy. This is one I'm pretty excited to put my teeth into.
Santiago, what are your initial impressions of these albums?
Both albums. I'm not familiar with these two albums, so yeah, like Bobby Caldwell, never heard of him. Runway sounds familiar, but neither like I never listened anything from Runaways either. So yeah, like as I always do, I go here without any expectations. At first, when you mentioned, well, when I read Cat in the Head, I was thinking as well about Dr. Seuss. I thought it was a soundtrack even by from the Cat in the Head, but it seems it's not. So anyway, I'm curious to listen to these artists. Uh, I'd say the first time. So let's see. So let's see.
Alright, now for my initial impressions before we go on to the albums. Um, yeah, I mean, these albums, I haven't heard either one of these albums before. I know the One Ways from that one song in Guardians of the Galaxy, and also I know some Joan Jett's stuff after she left the One Ways. That one song, Guardians of the Galaxy, I didn't particularly care for either way. I don't particularly hate it, but it wasn't particularly good either. Um, it's probably going to be a fine album. I'm going into it with kind of just like, this will probably be good, but not great sort of expectation. Also, The Cannon in the Hat by Bobby Caldwell. I don't even know what genre this is. I have no clue. I'm going into this basically the same way I went into Tame Impala, except with perhaps even less knowledge than I went into Clones by Tame Impala with. So, yeah, I mean, I am going into Cat in the Hat by Bobby Caldwell absolutely blind. So this should certainly be very interesting. Honestly, this is my favorite type of episode to do. Um, for me. So yeah, it should be an interesting pairing. Okay, we're gonna go listen to the albums now, and we'll be right back. So stay tuned. All right, now we've gone and listened to the albums, and we're now going to discuss how we feel about them. Now, the first album we're going to be starting with is The Can of the Hat by Bobby Caldwell, and we are going to start with you, Ben, as always.
It was okay. Kind of reminded me of Christopher Costa self-titled. Kind of reminded me of Steely Dan. Yeah, that's about it. Um, it was okay.
Honestly, it didn't remind me of Steely Dan too much. It's just that it reminded me of Christopher Cross, and Christopher Cross reminds me of Steely Dan, so...
Yeah, just like a little bit reminded me of Steely Dan.
Maybe a little tiny bit.
That being said, do I have like much of a memory of any specific songs? I mean, I don't think so. Uh, I don't know. It didn't make that much of an impression on me. Um, yeah, it was what it was. It was okay.
It do be like that sometimes. Alright, Matthew, you're up next. What were your thoughts on this album?
I really liked this album, The Cat in the Hat by Bobby Caldwell. This, as I said before, this is an album that I have been well acquainted with since I was younger. I like the pacing of of this album as it's just 8 tracks. You can listen to it in a car ride. You can listen to it while you're doing basically doing like maybe studying or whatever. It's like nice and chill. It almost feels like the 8 songs are a part of a melody, and yeah, I really like this album.
Alright, Santiago, how did you feel about this album?
It's it's an alright album. Like, uh, I mean, it has a vibe that honestly I do like it. I like it. I wanna say it's like I wanna say I love the album either. Like, I feel it doesn't have like song that will stick to me. But anyway, I feel like it's basically as what Matthew said. Like, I will definitely play these when I'm doing whatever, you know. Like, I usually listen music, solely music. Like, I hardly multitask. So when I listen music, it's just music. But even with this album, well, I would not bother doing something else while listening to it because it's honestly, I feel like every song is just follows like the same vibe. Like, I would say that my favorite was "You Promised Me." Yeah, that was probably my favorite song. Uh, so yeah, I do like it. It's an alright album.
Alright, well, I guess it's now time to give my thoughts on The Cat in the Hat by Bobby Caldwell. I thought this album was okay. It was, kind of like chill background music, I guess. I mean, I thought it was nice. Kind of reminded me of Crystal Cross, has been said. Um, a bit more homogenous than that album, although perhaps avoiding some of the follies that Christopher Cross at times fell into as well. But it wasn't really anything that really stood out. There's no song that really stood out, or that I even really still remember even here talking about this album. It was just. It was kind of all like one thing. I get what Matthew was saying there, because it did feel like it was just kind of one kind of continuous yacht walk thing, in a way. And because of that, it didn't really have anything that felt like a single or like, anything to really hook you into that album, like Christopher Cross, has on his album. So yeah, like Camera Head, I just really don't remember all that well. I literally just listened to it for this, episode, and I just don't remember it very well. I mean, I kind of remember. I remember what it sounds like. Like I remember the style. It's pleasing background music, but it's not much more I could say about it. It's good enough for what it is, I suppose. That's it. Anyone have any final thoughts on the Cat in the Hat?
I feel the same way, Chris. Like there wasn't a song that was I will remember the melody even like oh yeah this song but overall it just has this vibe that you could just leave the album playing and you just don't even bother to focus on what's going on in the album.
Yeah, it was kind of. It's absent minded music. Music for absent minded people.
Yeah, you could say so.
Alright, well, moving on to the next album. The next album was The Runaways by The Runaways. Well, we'll start with you, as usual, Ben. What were your thoughts on The Runaways by The Runaways?
This album was also alright. It was a punk album. I would say that like I enjoyed listening to it. Yeah. Though admittedly, I didn't feel very strongly for its most famous song, "Cherry Bomb." The thing that stood out to me, I don't know if it was in a good or bad way, was the final song on it, which kind of reminded me of like the style of music in the '60s. In like bands like the Shangri-Las and stuff that were like gold groups in the '60s that would have like songs with it was like narrative, like that was being like spoken word is a part of it. Um, so that was kind of interesting. Um, but otherwise, I mean, yeah, it's technically a gold group. But like it is a punk gold group, which is somewhat different than kind of the gold groups of the 1960s. But altogether, yeah, I thought this album was okay, I guess. I enjoyed it more than The Cat in the Hat.
Alright, well, we're moving on to you, Matthew. What were your thoughts on The Runaways?
Like the other album, Cat in the Hat, I also really like Runaway self-titled. This is probably the most where I liked both albums like in the same level. Like I both really enjoyed listening to both The Cat in the Hat by Bobby Caldwell and The Runaway self-titled. Like again, this is like punk music. It's a good listen, an album you listen to in one sitting. It's not that much. It's just 10 tracks. It's punk music. Like what you can't really go wrong with punk music. Of course, it has this famous song, "Cherry Bomb." I think also I kind of have the same criticisms I have for Chris have for Can the Hat I have with Runaway self-titled. Like I kind of didn't remember most of it, but I still enjoyed listening to um, the album. Like I could I can recall like the songs in Bobby Caldwell's Can the Hat, like Coming Down from Love, Right or Wrong, You Promise Me, It's Over, Open Your Eyes, etc., etc., which not as much, but I still really enjoy this album.
Alright, Santiago, what were your thoughts on the Runaways?
Well, I'm not used to listen punk music, but even I like this album honestly. I will say that I had like the same level of enjoyment like to the other one, which is Cat in the Head. Like I just feel like I have that same level of enjoyment. So I will say that this album is just all right as well. Like all right, you know. So I mean the first song, which is Cherry Bomb, it wasn't bad. I did like it. Honestly, yeah, it was fun to listen throughout this album. Maybe I could feel that I had a little more fun even listening to this album. Uh, so yeah, it's not a bad album either.
Alright, time for my thoughts now. Well, this is what I thought about the Runaways. I think the first song of the album, Cherry Bomb, kind of a big, most known song these days. I didn't really care that much for it. It's an alright song. But I mean, I was already well familiar with it. Can't say I felt much about it. The last track on the album, the one Ben said stood out to him. That track I honestly thought was kind of bad. But as for the middle, I thought the middle was actually pretty good. I will, in particular, give highlights to You Drive Me Wild. That was a good one. Thunder, that was a good one. And then especially I'd say Walk and Roll, Levels, and American Nights. Those were three in a row I thought were pretty good tracks on the album. So I think it kind of had a pretty weak ending, a kind of mediocre opening, but a pretty solid middle. So I quite liked this album actually. I guess I have kind of some unconventional picks when it comes to what I actually liked on it, but still, I did quite like some of those tracks in the middle, and will be listening to them again. Maybe not the whole album, but those middle tracks at least.
I didn't say that the last song was good. Just that it stood out to me that it sounded like a Shangri-La's.
Oh well, still, that last
It was
song,
pretty weird,
it was
yeah,
too,
but
it was a little too cheesy and a little too self-referential. Like we like cheesy and self-referential here, but that was maybe a little too much.
yeah, I mean, I enjoyed listening to the metal tracks and stuff too. I would say more of a Joy Bomb, even
Yeah.
too. So in that sense, like, I think I broadly agree with you, Christopher. It just stood out to me because it's like I was walking while listening to it, and like the one like thing that was like different is of course what like stands out.
Yeah, I'd say track 5, 6, and 7 in particular, or like real good stuff is at. So yeah, so that's what my thoughts on the album. Well, I thought it was pretty good, honestly. There was some good stuff kind of hidden in there. So yeah. So yeah, now we've given our thoughts on both albums. So now we want to see who thinks what album is better. So I mean, you know, which album we think is better. So, Ben, we're going to start with you. Which album did you like better, The Can, the Hat, or The Runaways?
Runaways.
Alright. Matthew, which album did you think was better?
Cat in the Hat.
Okay. Santiago, which album did you think was better?
Honestly, this is hard to choose. I'm trying to decide because,
Yeah, you can
as I said
abstain.
before, as I said before, like I had like the same level of enjoyment in both albums. Like I and not only the enjoyment, but also I just feel these both albums fall into the category that they are just all right, you know. So I feel, yeah, I kind of feel neutral about these two albums. Like I like both, and that's it, you know. Like I don't feel like I like one more than the other, so it's hard to decide.
And in justification of Santiago, my pick of Cat in the Hat was close because I both really enjoy these albums. Like probably the most out of everyone in this chat. So I understand his opinion on that.
Yeah. Yeah, so Santiago abstains, and I, Chris, will personally be voting for the Runaways. So we've got Ben and me voted for Runaways, Matthew voted for the Cat in the Hat, and Santiago has abstained. Alright, and here at the end we will announce who picked what album. Okay, so before we begin, does anyone have any guesses as to who picked which of these albums?
Ben
Matthew
picked
stuff.
Ben
But
picked Runaway. I'm very sure of that.
So Matthew thinks Ben picked Runaway, and Ben thinks Matthew picked both. Alright, you all ready for the big reveal? Drum roll, please.
All right.
Matthew picked Cat in the Hat by Bobby Caldwell, and I picked The Runaways.
Oh, nice, nice pick, I guess.
Alright, so that's it for today's episode. I hope everyone has enjoyed this episode. We, of course, do this as an ongoing series, Chris Bottger's Album Club. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Those things help me out a great deal. And we will have 2 more albums coming up soon. So, once again, thanks for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.